Well, welcome everybody to Earth Day. It's 50 years of Earth Day in the United States and worldwide, and we're broadcasting live to you from Mission San Juan Capistrano, California. The weather is beautiful. It's as if nature and the environment got together to give us the very best. Here at Mission San Juan Capistrano, we've been open for over 240 years as a place of inspiration, education, and celebration. But sadly, the mission grounds are closed because of the virus. So we wanted to find a creative way to bring Earth Day to our adoring public and supportive members and volunteers. So with the help of our creative education director, Jessica Crossman, who's been with the mission now for a year and a half at the helm of our education programs, we're trying our very, very first digital Earth Day. And we hope that you'll join us later in the day to see some of our videos and find other ways that you can celebrate Mother Nature and history together. So Jessica comes to us with a great background in museum, and she's a San Diego native and has a great interest in film. And in fact, some of the videos that we've been releasing lately have her special touch on them. So I'm going to let her introduce the panel that you have today, and let me hand it over to Jessica Crossman.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, as Michelle said, my name is Jessica Crossman. I am the Director of Education at Mission San Juan Capistrano. And with us today, we have two of our wonderful gardening angels. We have Jan Sorensen and we have Tony Nelson with us, both of who will be answering questions for you. And some of the questions we already had sent in to us, which is wonderful. Thank you for that. But before we get into that, I wanted to share with you our new digital resource center on the website. And let me bring that up. I'm going to share this with you. It's the place to get the most up-to-date information from the mission. Let me share it with you right now. Okay. If you will go to our website and you click on this lovely blue slide, this is our brand new digital resource center, and it's all the most up-to-date information, the mission coming to you in your home, since we can't have you come and visit us in person. We have everything from a virtual walkthrough, our audio tour is available online. We have history at home, educational distance learning resources, as well as some of our museum archives are available digitally too. And we have an entire page devoted to this Earth Day celebration, which is right here. So if you go to our website and scroll down, you can view all of these wonderful videos that were created for this Earth Day celebration, which is just fantastic. We're so excited to be able to share that with you. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. Did you wanna mention one last thing, Michelle, before we get started with questions?
I just wanted to encourage our guests to remember that they can continue to support the mission online by making a donation or joining our membership program. Every little bit will help us to reopen our incredible landmark, and we need the community's support. So missionsjc.com is our website for the Digital Resource Center, for Earth Day celebration, and for future programming and videos, and as well to get involved and make a donation to support us. Now, with that said, let's go on with our panel.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, so we have many questions here today. We actually have some questions that sent in some photos. So I'm gonna bring up a photo here, and I'm gonna direct this question to Jan. So Jan, this photo that I'm gonna bring up is goes along with a question that has to do with a pest on the plant. So a pest, what looks like a pest. Can you see this photo that I just shared?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so the question that goes along with this photo is, I bought a milkweed plant so that I could have a monarch butterfly lay their eggs on it. But instead of monarch butterfly eggs, I have these little yellow things. Are they mites? And how do I get rid of them?
Well, they're not mites. They're, excuse me, they're aphids.
Ah.
And I think I maybe also see a few ants there. Aphids are piercing, sucking insects, if you can, and they just literally suck the life out of a plant. And ants, as you can see crawling up the hill, farm these insects and they keep them safe. And so if you see the aphids with ants, you have to, first of all, you always should get rid of the ants because they protect those darn aphids. And a nice hard blast of water is about all you need to get rid of them. You don't have to use any insecticides or anything like that. Just knock them off with a hard blast of water.
Oh, that's wonderful. We'll have to, hopefully this person is watching. They can just.
Yeah, they're always around, always. So just, or you could smash them, which I do oftentimes with your fingers.
What about what I've heard about buying ladybugs or encouraging ladybugs?
I know. Well, that's the truth, but you have to get the ladybugs to stay where you put them. And the problem is that the ladybugs often fly off somewhere else. They very rarely stay where you put them. Yeah. So you purchase ladybugs to go take care of somebody else's yard, basically.
All right. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. Thank you, Jan. That was great.
You're welcome.
I learned something new. Okay, I'm going to mute you, Jan. And my next question is for Tony. Tony, I know that you are in charge of our veggie garden at the mission. So this is a vegetable question. The question is, what is the easiest vegetable to start growing and when should I plant it? And I also want to follow up. We got a second question that asks for 4 specific vegetables that people can start their veggie garden with. So feel free to answer that however you would prefer.
Okay, well, it probably, with vegetables, it really depends on the time of year. And because we're here in Southern California, we have at least 2 growing seasons, and a lot of people would think we actually have more like 3 or 4. I think things like strawberries, some of our local growers and farmers get 3 or 4 seasons out of strawberries. So we're really blessed with a beautiful climate. But basically at the mission, we have the same problems that all gardeners have around Southern California. And one is that we have a very clay-like soil, so soil amendments are really important. And then also we have 2 really distinct gardening seasons. We have a summer garden and we have a winter garden. And right now we're kind of coming to the end of our winter garden and moving into spring, summer. So in the winter, in our winter garden, and winter can start as early as late October, early November in California, we can start planting a lot of vegetables that are in the cruciferous category, things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, all those yummy things that the kids don't really like to eat very much at the mission. And also lettuces. Lettuces are super easy to grow, and they grow all winter. You can have all kinds of them. We just grow them, harvest them, grow them, harvest them. Cabbages are in the same category. Cabbages take longer to grow, but they're beautiful, and they have this nice way of creating this head around them so that the bugs can't get them. They're just really wonderful vegetables to grow. Also, our Swiss chard is super easy in the winter. And we've even this year, we started some winter hybrid tomatoes, and they're actually growing. So it's kind of amazing. Usually tomatoes are reserved for summer, but there are hybrids that you can use as well. And the winter garden also, our beans and peas are easy to grow. Most of it just grows. I mean, our winter gardens are super. In the summer, it's kind of a totally different climate. We have to really worry about heat. At the mission, we grow corn, which is one of the staples that would have been, part of our original people living in the mission and the natives. We also grow some beans and bush beans and so on. Tomatoes are really popular. We grow little baby cherry tomatoes and grape tomatoes. Very easy to grow. You cannot kill a tomato. It's really hard to kill one. And we've tried. I'm trying to think of what else. Peppers are also very popular in the summer. Cucumbers will grow. The radishes that you're seeing in this photo, we do from seeds. Radishes are more of a cool weather crop, but we can get them in the summer too. And what else? Oh, all of our squashes are more of a summer plant as well. So all of the zucchinis, which can grow big as baseball bats, you have to pick them early while they're still young. But we can basically grow a lot of things in California. We're very blessed.
Oh, that's wonderful. I have a photo here. I think it's of some kale that I can share too at the Mission Gardens. Let me see if I can share that with you. I'm amazed at how huge these kale plants are.
Yeah, that's a big sort of dinosaur kale. We have different kales that we grow. This one is kind of very hardy and it gets huge. That's actually pretty early in its season. It was a good 3 or 4 feet tall by the time it was finished.
Wow.
And we also grow other little baby kales that are, we pick them when they're tender and they're more palatable to use in culinary uses. But kale is a really easy thing to grow. Yeah, and behind that you're seeing, looks like that's some tomatoes back there. Mm. And in the front, you're seeing some onions. Onions are also a really easy, forgiving thing to grow. All you have to do is pop that little clove into the ground and up they come. So they're very easy. Some of that might be garlic too.
Oh, that's great.
In the front, yeah.
I have one more veggie garden photo that I can share here. Let me stop sharing this one. And here we go. There we go.
Oh yeah, this is on the left side of our garden by the herb garden. And let's see what we have in here. We've got, so right here is some parsley, and parsley is a really interesting plant because it is it's very well loved by the larvae of the swallowtail butterflies. We have an awful lot of monarchs at the mission, but swallowtails found a home in our parsley, so we stopped harvesting it and let them grow up. And they were delightful. The kids could come in and see them, and they make these beautiful big yellow butterflies. And then beyond that is chives, and the chives are really interesting. They're a plant that just keeps on giving. You just let it grow, you give it a haircut, and we all go off and have our baked potato with sour cream and chives, and then they just grow back up again. So those chive plants in there are probably 3 or 4 years old. And if you keep them growing, they get these adorable little pink flowers on them, and you can actually, they're edible as well, the flowers. And beyond that is a bunch of different lettuces. You'll see leaf lettuces and some of our red varieties, which are really pretty. And then beyond that is beets. And the beets, of course, are grown in the ground, and they clump together, and they can get huge too if you leave them too long. In general, when you pick a vegetable young, you're getting a more tender thing to eat. A small new potato is a very different thing from a big potato. And the same thing with beets and a lot of other things like zucchini. You kind of want them small. But at the mission, we often let them grow and grow because it's interesting for the kids. And we're not really growing them for food. We're growing them as a display garden. And it's really fun to show the kids what a vegetable looks like in the real world.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. My next question is going to be for Jan. So I'm going to mute you, Tony, and unmute you, Jan. So Jan, this question that was sent in says, I want to know the best way to prune roses. Can you help?
Well, they should really come to the mission and watch that demonstration. But they should be pruned every year. And they should be pruned in January. And it's hard to describe, without having a plant here, but we should determine what size we want the rose to be. You can normally cut it back as far as you want. You probably won't kill it. But first of all, I always like to take the crossing branches, cut the crossing branches off, because it's supposed to be clear in the center of the rose. You're supposed to have like a vase-shaped rose shrub without crossing branches, which stops air circulation. And if you do that, you promote disease. So we don't want to do that. So you take out the crossing branches. Then you decide, how much you want to cut off. And when you do cut off a branch, I don't know if I should have a branch with me, but you should cut down as far as you want to go to the stem, the leaf stem that has 5 leaflets coming off of it, and cut just above that 5 leaflet. And you should cut that leaflet that is pointing from the stem and pointing outward. And you cut just above that outward pointing leaflet to direct the growth of the rose. I'm sorry, it's difficult here. And you actually direct the direction that rose grows in. You actually are directing how the rose grows. You are shaping it, and you have to make sure that the cut you make is directing the new branch outward. And that's about all you have to do. I mean, and then after you cut those off and you get them all ready, you take off all the leaves. You have to take off all the foliage, clean up under the shrub, make sure all of the foliage is gone in the trash. And then after you start to see new growth on your rose, then you can give it its first feeding of the season. And that should be it. You should do very well.
That was great. Thank you.
I hope you understand, because it is confusing.
No, that was good.
I have a quick question. When you say the feeding of the season, Jan, like what are you feeding a rose bush? What kind of food do you get? And is it something you get out of your house?
I use an organic fertilizer called Grow Power Plus. Okay. And I use that one exclusively, basically, unless there is some disease problem and maybe I want to add a little bit of iron if it's chlorotic. But usually I just use Grow Power Plus. And when it pushes its first growth, then I will sprinkle it around the rose and water it in. Another thing I forgot to say is that mulch. These roses should be mulched. Pull the mulch away from the stem of the rose. You don't want the mulch up tight against the rose. It needs to breathe. Roses need air circulation. If they don't have this air circulation, they can get all kinds of diseases, mildew specifically, rust. So you have to keep the rose thinned out. You know, it can't be all bunched together. It needs a little air, you know, and the mulch likes mulch very much, but not smack dab up against the trunk. Mm-hmm. And then when you feed
what about snails? Do you put snail stuff out by the roses?
If the snails are bothering your roses, at the mission we really don't have much problem with snails at all. But I use Sluggo, a bait for snails, and it's not harmful to people, pets, animals, anything like that. But if I do need something, and Tony needs it in the vegetable garden oftentimes, and we use Sluggo. So that should do it. And the roses also like deep water. They don't like to be squirted all the time. They need to be deep watered, and you don't have to do it that frequently. You don't have to do it every day. You don't have, you know, you feel and see how the water situation is doing there. And then deep water, take your hose and lay it down there or something like that. But they like deep water, and you won't have to water for a couple of weeks.
That's great. Thank you, Jan. And I'm glad that you brought up mulching, because the next question is actually about mulching.
Okay.
And I think both you and Tony can speak to this, but we'll start with you, and then we can have Tony add information about mulching in our veggie garden and what she recommends. But so the question is, I've heard I need to do mulching. What do I need to do? When do I need to mulch? What's the best kind of mulch that you recommend?
Well, I recommend an organic mulch. And we have it delivered from a soil company who makes their own mulch and, delivers it to us. You don't want to buy anything that you don't know what's in it. Some use sewage and stuff like that. I recommend you don't buy that kind of stuff. You know, you don't want that. Ours is mostly bark. I don't think that we have any manure in. Some have manure in them. We just have bark. And we mulch the whole mission. It's at least 2 inches. You should have this mulch. And you just replenish it as it needs it. A good time to mulch, I think, is in the spring, because normally, at least at the mission, you have cut back all of your perennials and the roses are cut back and it's all cleaned up, getting nice and spiffy for everybody, all the debris cleaned up, and then put on your nice mulch. So it's all taken care of. And I really think spring is the best time to do it. And if you have to replenish it in certain places during the year, you know, just go ahead and do that. So I think that's it. Water again, you know, just sprinkle it. Yeah.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I'm going to unmute Tony here and see, Tony, if you have anything specific you want to share about mulching with the veggies.
Yeah, I think the big difference in the veggie garden is that we do use some manure. We use chicken manure mixed in with the mulch, and we have a particular brand that Jan gets for us that has just really good organic soil compounds, and then it also has a little bit of chicken manure, and that just seems to give the vegetables a little bit of a boost. And the other thing I've mentioned with mulch is that it's so good for just keeping the weeds out of there. It really helps you to stop the weeds. It doesn't stop them completely, but it certainly helps. And it also is so good for moisture retention. And when we get those hot summers, those roses and everything else at the mission are so grateful that they have mulch around them because they can hold in some of that soil. And it also helps, but as it breaks down, it helps to break down all the clay in our soil, because left alone, our gardens at the mission, like every place else in Southern California, are like a brick. You get a shovel in there and you try to dig a hole and you're like, you can't do it. But if you add mulches constantly and you're always tilling that soil, it really helps. And the other thing we do with vegetables is every time we change a crop, you know, if we say, okay, the cucumbers are spent, we're pulling them out, we pull them out and we usually will add a little bit of mulch and fertilizer at that point and till it all in and hoe it in and get the soil sort of replenished. And we also rotate our crops so that if you had diseases associated with a certain one, you're not bringing it in again. So if it was cucumbers, next time it's going to be radishes or something. You just move things around, and crop rotation, I think, helps a little bit. Yeah.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Okay, our next question comes along with another photo. So let me share this photo with you. Okay, the question for this is, I keep seeing this plant around my neighborhood, and I think I've seen it at the mission. What is it called? And how do I get it to grow in my garden? So I'll open it up with Jan. I'll unmute you. Jan, can you answer this?
Yes,
question?
that is a Salvia leucantha.
Okay.
Mexican bush sage is the common name. And it is a native of Southwest United States. It's easy to grow. What I do, I go to the nursery and I buy a gallon or a 4-inch pot of Salvia leucantha, and it grows extremely well. It's very easy to grow. One thing, it's drought tolerant, and it has, you can see the pretty little blue flower coming up. Well, when it's in full bloom, the whole plant is just full of all of these spikes of soft, bright blue, normally furry, fuzzy, velvety flowers. And it is a favorite of most people around here. They're beautiful when it's all in bloom. The plant has a tendency to spread, and it spreads down in the soil. The roots grow out, the plants, if the plant branch touches the soil, it's going to root. And that plant can get very large by this way. You know, you don't, it doesn't reseed specifically, but it just roots. It's an easy plant, easy plant. In the spring, I cut back all of the old branches when I see fresh new branches coming up in the center of the plant, and I cut off the old branches right down to the ground, and the plant rejuvenates itself every year by doing this. You have to wait till you see that new growth coming up, and I like it to be up, you know, at least 6 inches, and then cut the old branches off, and you've got a brand new plant starting. So they're a really good plant, I think. Drought tolerant, full sun.
Oh, great, full sun.
You can do it.
That's wonderful. Tony, do you have anything to add?
I love Mexican sage. I think it's a wonderful plant. And if you do buy it for your garden, make sure you give it lots of room, because that guy will take over if you let it. We have one at the mission behind one of the old concrete benches near the statue of Saint Sarah. And that thing just spreads, and it's absolutely glorious in the summer. It's so, so pretty. And it takes a little bit of maintenance, but it's not really, it doesn't get a lot of diseases, and it's just a gorgeous plant. Really a wonderful native to put in all of our gardens, really.
That's great. Thank you. I feel like I learned something new. Okay, I'm going to mute you, Tony. And I have my next question here. So the next question is asking about a particular succulent plant that we have at the mission. And I think I have a picture that I was able to locate of this plant. So the question, let me read first, is asking specifically, saying, I remember seeing a large succulent plant behind the Great Stone Church. What happened to it? Did it flower? And, you know, what is it called? So I'm gonna share what I think is the photo that I was able to find, because it's a very big plant. Okay. So I'm gonna direct this question to Jan. Jan, can you answer this?
Yes, I can answer that.
Yeah.
First of all, it's not a succulent.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not a succulent. It's a cactus.
Okay.
It's an agave. It's an agave variegata americana. And it's variegata denotes the variegated foliage on there.
What does
And
variegated
this-
mean?
Yeah.
What does
And-
variegated mean?
Huh?
What does variegated mean?
Variegated means the change in color, the striped light color habit of this plant. That's variegated. And you can also see coming up through the center of this plant something that looks like a huge asparagus stalk. And this plant is setting up his seeds. That's his flower stalk. And that stalk is going to bloom, and it's going to release its seeds. Sometimes they have new plantlets on them. And when that happens and the whole process of reproducing finishes, the plant dies. And that is what happened. The flower spike, it doesn't die immediately. It takes months, and it did take months for it, but we had to get it out of there because being dead or dying, it's very unstable, and that was a very, very long flower spike, and we were afraid that it was going to fall on somebody and hurt somebody very, very much. But this is what these agaves do when they bloom. That's their flower. That's where the seeds are. That's where the seeds grow. Their purpose in life is finished. So they die. The mother plant dies. this plant did have pups in the past, and I don't even know what happened to those pups, but there's no pups were there when this happened. So we had to take it out. It's a big job. You need machinery to get it out. It's a beautiful plant, absolutely gorgeous. And it's a shame to see it go, but that's what they do. And it's Agave Americana variegata. And you can see the plant off to the left of it there, that's a flower spike going up on that one.
Oh, okay.
And that is an agave also. There are just hundreds of agaves, and every one of them, they put up a flower spike like the one to the left. And this one, I think makes little babies on the ends of this spike. And they're just little babies. They're just tiny little babies. And you can pick those off and plant them, and you'll end up with a plant like this. That doesn't happen with the Agave Americana here.
Oh.
But that's what they do. They put up their flower spike. They spawn. That's about what it's like.
That's great.
Yeah, that's what agaves do. So if you see those flower spikes going up, and the plant will be dead soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask Jan, what color was the flower on this large agave when it was blooming? Because I unfortunately don't have a picture of that.
It's not a beautiful bright color at all. It's very pale, pale greeny yellowy, yeah, very pale, but amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, we also got, let me stop sharing this photo. We also got, related to this question, a question asking about succulents and what succulents were good to grow in your garden. What's something that could be maybe simple to start with. So I'm gonna pass this over to Tony to see if she wants to take this question first, just about what's the best succulents to maybe start growing in your garden.
I think you can start with almost any succulent. There's so many of them. And I think if you're starting a new garden, I would encourage you to not get giant ones because they're going to get that way. Start with little baby ones. You can even borrow them from your neighbors or have them, share some of their puppies with you. At my own garden at home, I have tropicals and succulents primarily. And my whole neighborhood has the same plants that I have, because succulents are just the plant that keeps on giving. You'll see a beautiful aeonium, and then underneath it, you'll see all these little baby ones coming up. And all you have to do is snap those off and share them with your neighbors, or put them into a pot, and you can mix them in for different colors and varieties. And there's just endless variety. There's all kinds. Jan probably knows a lot of the names. I don't. But all I know is that I love them. And there's everything from purslane, which is really pretty green succulent, and then it develops this long spire with these purple flowers that are gorgeous, and they wave, and we have them at the Mission. They're beautiful. All kinds of aeoniums, echeverias. There's endless variety. Even within jades, there are jades that are orange and yellow, and you can mix them up. There are ones that look like little fingers. There's giant ones. Tons of varieties. And the thing to remember is just that they're very forgiving. They do need water. They are not, a lot of people think of them as being completely drought resistant, but they are not. This is one that I just love. This is beside an agave. I don't know the name of this, Jen, maybe you know, but it has this lovely orange flower that comes out. And what I would do is just snap off one of these little babies and just add it to another pot and mix it in wherever I want to, and it'll develop something as big as this again very shortly. And the same with this little ruffled one underneath. It's a lovely one. I have it around a lot of my plants as sort of a ruffled skirt, and you can just break off little pieces of the ruffles and just plant them in. And technically, a lot of people say that when you transplant a succulent, that you should leave it for a few days for it to harden. I don't even bother with that, and they do just fine. I just break them off, stick them back in the ground, and they seem to just root themselves and find their own way. They're just a wonderful plant for Southern California. And the other thing to remember is that although they're drought tolerant and they like sunshine, they can't tolerate the really extreme heat of summer. So I wouldn't put it in a super hot spot in your garden. They can tolerate some shade and they like sun, but I wouldn't scorch them. So you do have to water them. You do have to protect them a little bit. In hotter climates, like in the desert, the succulents just can't make it in the summer. But we're blessed here, especially along the coast, and we have them all year round. I have them in my garden all year round, and they do great. They're really, really popular plants. And they make wonderful gifts. I wanted to share that we have somebody in my neighborhood who has figured out a way to pay it forward during the pandemic. And she has given up, I just noticed on her sidewalk today, she puts a tag every day to say how many plants she's given away. And as of today, I think she gave away 310 succulent plants in the neighborhood. And what happens is people just come by and they drop off little containers, even coffee mugs or pots that they have, or even jam jars, all kinds of things. She fills them with soil, fills them with succulent babies from her garden, and people trot them off. So they're all over the place now. And such a nice way to pay it forward, and such a nice little gift to bring to people. So that's one of the bonuses of succulents. They just keep going. They're almost unkillable, and they're just a wonderful, wonderful species.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And what a lovely story about your neighbor. I love that. Jan, I'm gonna unmute you. Do you have anything that you want to share about succulents to kind of add on to what Tony was sharing?
Well, I think everything she said is true, and they are easy.
Oh, Jan, did we lose you? Okay, Jan, I'm going to mute you, and hopefully we'll get you back here. Oh, the joys of technology. Let's try again. Jan, are you with us?
I'm here.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me?
We can now. Yes.
Yeah.
Please
No, I
continue.
just was saying that what Tony said, everything she said is what I would have said. And she's right about, I think especially people think that those succulents, you put them in the sun, the hot sun, and they're going to thrive and be happy, and they're not. So I think they are better off with some shade, late afternoon shade, not the hot sun. They're just not going to be happy with that at all. You have to watch out for aphids on the flower stalks. That's another thing. Those darn aphids come along and they really like the flowers. So you have to knock those off of there. But otherwise, they're a very, very satisfying plant to grow and to nurture. Very satisfying. And they are a wonderful little gift. Good idea for kids to do that, especially now when there's not much doing. You can pot them up and leave them on the neighbor's doorsteps or something like that. It's a good idea.
And it's very sweet. I love that idea too. Okay, the next question, Jan, I'm going to direct it at you. And then if Tony wants to add on to this, we can turn it over to Tony. But the next question says, the citrus trees at the Mission are beautiful. How do I get mine to be that beautiful? What would you say to that?
Once again, you have to water them. It's amazing what water can do to plants. It really is. And I always say that, and I know that, but boy, is that the truth. So you have to make sure you water them properly and water the whole drip line of the tree. The drip line is the spot directly under the tree itself, branches, everything included, and that is the drip line. It goes out from the trunk to the ends of the branches, and you have to feed them. And I like to use the citrus fertilizers because they include micronutrients that do help the citrus trees. And I just fed some yesterday, as a matter of fact. And you have to feed them regularly. And now they're starting to produce the new fruit for next year. So they really need food now, and and they need water. You just can't let them go dry. It really stresses them. They could lose all of their fruit. So you have to pay attention to water. You have to pay attention to feeding, and you also have to pay attention to all kinds of things, actually. They have a little leaf miner that gets into the leaves. You'll see like little silvery tunnels through the leaves. And I don't spray the trees with an insecticide or anything like that.
Oh, I think, Jan, we might have had you pause again.
Well, that was really interesting to me.
I just cut. I thought she said she was pausing. Yeah.
Oh no, it looked like you were froze to us for a second. Michelle, did you have a question?
Yeah, I want to ask her. So Jan, if you have a tree, like a citrus tree, and it stops producing fruit, can you bring it back? What's your recommendation? Can you bring it back from the dead? What's the deal?
Does it look dead, or it's just?
Well, not like this would happen in my home, but I had a construction project going on in my backyard, and so everything got ripped up, but my tree is still there. And I noticed I only have one lemon. And so I thought, oh no, is it stopping to produce? Like, what will happen next year? So my question is like, does it sometimes fruit a lot and it doesn't, or is that a sign of its decline?
Does it get water?
Yes, and it has green leaves. It still has stuff on it.
Do you ever fertilize it?
Honestly, no.
Maybe try that.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't you try that?
Okay.
And get specific citrus fertilizer, because they have the nitrogen, potassium, NPK, those numbers. If you get the middle number higher than the others, that will help with the fruit production also.
And you just sprinkle the fertilizer under the bottom.
Sprinkle it around,
line,
and maybe you should just fluff it up a little bit and then water it in. Make sure you water it in well.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried that. And it's in the full sun?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. I tried that. It doesn't happen overnight, though. That's
Okay.
another thing.
How come some people put their trees in containers? Like you'll see a potted lemon tree or a citrus tree. Those still work as well as a fully planted lemon tree?
I have potted citrus trees.
Uh-huh.
And I think that maybe they're harder than in the ground. But if you don't have the sun to plant them or the space to plant them, a pot is good. You have to make sure you water them a lot because the pots dry out. And you have to feed them more because they just, use up the nutrients in the soil faster because there's not that much. So you have to water and feed. And you really have to be careful not to let them go dry. If you do that, it takes quite a while to get them to come back again. It just doesn't happen overnight.
Okay.
But yeah, you can't forget that in a pot. You really have to take care. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Hopefully we'll get your tree looking more happy than it does right now, right? Okay. So we have 3 more questions left, and I guess I'll start with Tony on this one. So this question's great, but I feel like there's probably a million different answers to it. So it says, what is the easiest native to Southern California where we are, native plant to grow in my yard? So again, I feel like this could probably be a million different answers, but Tony, what would you say to this?
Wow. Natives. Wow. I'd probably have to say the salvias. Also our poppies. You know, the poppies are native to California. They're our state flower. And those you can just seed and throw all over the place. We have so many poppies at the mission, and they're just glorious this time of year. They just populate all over the place. But the salvias probably, because they're disease resistant, they can handle the heat. They don't need a ton of water. They're just happy. In my own yard, I'm on the coastal bluff, and we have acacia, which I think is native. And it is not, Jan? It's not?
Australian.
Australian. Okay, so scratch that one. But I know coyote bush and some of the coastal scrubs, we use those a lot along bluff lands and so on to hold our soil. Those are all native. I don't know. I'd have to just say that the salvias are probably the easiest ones. And then milkweed, of course. There's milkweed, which I guess is not native to here if it's the tropical one, but there is a native California milkweed that we have. And we could try that as well.
That's great. Let me turn it over to Jan. Okay, Jan, do you have anything to add?
Well, I think Tony mentioned the milkweed, and I don't think that the native one is so easy to grow, but the one that we're not supposed to use is the easy one. So we've tried a lot of natives at the mission, and they don't do anywhere as well as the tropical milkweed. So I don't think those are so easy. I think Tony is right about the salvias. There are many native salvias, and the poppy, the California poppy, you can get seed, and if you're lucky, it'll come up, and you'll have those beautiful poppies all over the place. Natives, I think, are not the easiest thing in the world to grow. The native tree, Quercus agrifolia, the native live oak, the California live oak. I don't think it's hard to grow at all, and they're beautiful, but of course you can't put them in every garden, that's for sure. And I think a lot of the easier ones are big plants. The lemonade berry, which we do have at the mission, is a fun plant to grow and to have, you know, the little berries that are actually very lemony in flavor. Those are easy to grow, but again, they are large. Ceanothus, some of them, California lilac is a ceanothus. Some of them are easy to grow, but they don't live very long. That's another problem, you know. They're very fussy about their water. Some don't want any at all. And you don't water them at all in the summer. You water in the winter is when they get their rain. So you've heard this already, Jessica.
No, it's great. It's great.
You know, they're natives, so they get their rain in the winter. That's when they like rain. They are blooming in the winter. They look beautiful in the winter. And then in the summer, they go dormant. They don't take up water. They don't do things. They just die if you give them water. So they're difficult in that way, that you really have to pay attention to what you're doing with it.
All right, that's great. Thank you. So the next question I'm going to direct to Tony. It's about herbs. So I know we have a lot of herbs in our veggie garden area. So this person asks, well, it's very general. I want to start an herb garden. Do you have any tips? Which I'm sure you have many.
Well, again, it comes down to your soil. So you have to make sure you're amending that clay and adding in something light that you can actually dig in. I would start herbs very small. I wouldn't bother with, you know, the giant rosemary bush. Just start with something really small, because it'll become a giant overnight, believe me. There are so many easy ones to plant. At the mission, we have rosemary, thyme, several different kinds of oregano, several different types of thyme. We have coconut thyme, lemon thyme, regular, you know, French thyme. Lavenders are very, very popular and easy to grow. Yeah, there's some of our lavender there. This is oregano over here, the little shorter one. Back here, I think is pineapple sage. I think against this wall, it's not blooming right now, but I think that's pineapple sage. And we have lemon balm down in the front. And I'm not sure what else that is over there. I know there's bay leaf over here on the left too. And one of the really popular ones at the mission is curry, which is a beautiful plant. It looks a lot like a rosemary, but the leaves are a little silvier, more silver and softer. And the scent is amazing, just a beautiful scent. And one of the things that we love doing in the Mission Herb Garden is cutting off little pieces and letting people smell some of our herbs. And the kids love to guess what is what. And everybody loves the lavender. And when I tell them that it's a calming plant and that you can use it for helping you to go to sleep, people just love that. They just love to smell it. But herbs are just really simple. I would generally probably plant them in the spring, but you can grow bay leaf, you can grow all kinds of things. We have feverfew, we have chamomile, we throw sunflowers in with them. They're just a really easy plant. And it's so nice to have them because you can use them for culinary purposes, and then you can even dry them and use them, as medicinal herbs, I guess, if you want to. But I don't do that. I generally, if I need it for instance, if you have migraines, feverfew is a really good plant, but I generally would just buy the capsule. But technically, I guess you could take the plant, dry the leaves, dry the flowers, pulverize them and put it in a capsule, or just make a tea out of it, and it would have the same effect. But almost all of them have a culinary or medicinal use as well. Plus they're beautiful, which is really pretty.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. That's great. I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that photo of the herbs from the mission. That was wonderful. So I think we're going to wrap up. I'm going to turn it over to Michelle, so you can wrap it up. I'll mute myself.
So first of all, I just want to thank you, Jessica. You did a great job with the panel. We're always making new history, and sometimes we don't even realize we're in history. So this is a landmark that's been around for over 242 years. And here we are venturing into a new area and a new era, digital area. And so we hope that our audience really enjoyed Jan and Tony, who are incredible volunteers at the mission. They have given years and years of their lives, not only as a volunteer, but really their blood, sweat, equity into the ground. And so we're grateful to them. And I hope that our viewers will encourage, when we reopen, telling people about our gardens as another reason to visit the mission. Of course, we're proud of our historic and religious significance and our architecture, but the gardens themselves are spectacular, and they change all year long. So please support our mission. Come and plan to visit us with a visit. We don't want to ask you for a whole bunch of money because everybody needs it right now. But what we'd like you to do is to put us on your calendar so that the minute we open our doors, you can bring your family or your friends in small groups and visit the mission and celebrate our gardens. And if you are so inclined to help us out, you can visit our website at missionsjc.com. If you want to learn more about our gardens, today we are debuting a garden tour put together with Siren Song videos. So that's the producer, worked with our team. So go to our digital resource center that Jessica is putting up here on the screen and visit Earth Day. And on our Earth Day celebration, you'll see that not only do we have a video of the gardens, which we're excited, celebrating the great outdoors at Mission SJC, all throughout the day you can log on with your family and visit and see our wonderful friend Jim Kerwood, who is known as Bicycle Jim here in San Juan Capistrano. He owns a 42-year-old business called Buy My Bikes, and he loves bees. And so he's a great storyteller. My little son, Jack, and I are going to log on and watch that together over our lunch hour. And then you can also visit our butterfly life cycle presentation with our friend, Susie Vanderlip. She's a local author and a monarch conservation specialist. You can log on to that. And finally, let us remember the indigenous people whom we've learned so much from their history and contributions about how to use the natural environment resourcefully and responsibly, and working with Educator of the Year and longtime mission friend and Native American educator, Jackie Nunez. So we have some videos celebrating not only the natural environment, but the tradition of being good stewards of the natural environment. So with that, I want to thank you for joining us. Thank you to Tony and Jan. And to our wonderful education director who's going into new direction with us, thank you, Jessica. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Okay, so it's lunchtime now for everybody.
That's
Okay.
it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna end our session. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations on a great first Digital Earth Day.